Mike sat in the office, his boss smiling too much. Words were nice, but the meaning felt off. Mike was in the office, noticing his boss's overly cheerful grin. The words sounded polite, but he sensed something was wrong. "You're a valuable team member," the boss said. But Mike saw the truth in his eyes. He was replaceable. "We really value you in this company," said the boss. Yet Mike realized from his look that anyone could fill his spot. And then, "Your work is always appreciated." But the tone whispered, "You should be working weekends." Then the boss claimed, "We truly admire your efforts." However, the way he spoke hinted, "Give up your weekends for the job." Mike, a master at reading between the lines, just nodded. "I'll try even harder," he said. Mike was good at understanding hidden messages. He just nodded. "I will work harder," he said. But in his head, he thought, "Time to update my resume." Sometimes words don't tell the full story. Still, he told himself, I should refresh my CV. Because sometimes what people say isn't the whole picture. Poker night. A young guy sat across from Tom, acting cool, but Tom had seen it all before. It was poker night. A new player sat facing Tom, trying to seem confident, but Tom had witnessed these moves plenty of times. Tom watched closely. A nose scratch, nervous bluff. A long sip of whiskey, fake confidence. Tom kept a sharp eye on him. If he touched his nose, he was anxious. If he took a big drink, he was only pretending to be sure of himself. The kid smirked, thinking he had a great hand. Tom just smiled, reading him like a book. The young man smiled. He thought his cards were great. Tom smiled too. He knew the truth. Without waiting, Tom pushed all his chips in. "Fold," he said. The kid hesitated, then sighed. Tom didn't pause. He shoved in every chip. "Drop out," he told the kid. The young man wavered, then breathed out heavily. He folded. Tom chuckled. Sometimes reading people is better than having good cards. He gave up. Tom laughed quietly. Sometimes figuring out people beats holding strong cards. Ever wonder where read comes from? It started with an old word meaning to guess or interpret. Did you know? A long time ago, read meant to guess or to understand something. Long ago, reading wasn't just about books. It was about understanding signs, faces, even stars in the sky. In the past, it wasn't only about letters on paper. People interpreted clues, expressions, and even the stars above. A traveler could read the weather by looking at clouds. A warrior could read an enemy's movements. A person on a journey could predict storms by watching the clouds. A fighter could sense an opponent's tactics. Over time, it became about words, but even today, we read situations, people, and hidden messages. Over the centuries, it shifted toward written words, yet even now, we pick up on events, folks around us, and unspoken clues. So reading isn't just books, it's understanding the world, like Mike did, like Tom did. So dealing with words on a page isn't the only focus. It's also grasping what happens around us, just like Mike, just like Tom. Think about it. When have you needed to read between the lines? A job interview? A first date? Consider this. When did you have to notice the hidden part of someone's words? Maybe at a job meeting? During a first date? Maybe you heard, "Let's do this again sometime," but knew it meant probably never. Maybe you were told, "We should meet up again soon," but you understood it really meant not going to happen. Or when have you read someone like a book? A friend saying, "I'm fine," but you knew otherwise. Or when did you figure someone out completely? A friend said, "I'm okay," but you knew that was far from true. You could say, "I can read you like a book. You're hiding something." You might tell them, "I can see right through you. There's more going on." Or, "I need to read between the lines here." Or, "I need to see what's really going on behind those words." Words aren't always what they seem. Pay attention. What people say can hide deeper truths. Stay sharp. What do you think? When have you noticed hidden meanings? How about you? When did you catch something more than the surface meaning? Confidence is great, but sometimes it blinds you. Believing strongly in yourself is fantastic. Sometimes, though, it makes you miss what's actually happening. Claire believed she was the best cook in the world. Claire thought she was the best cook ever. Her friends arrived. She waved her spoon like a queen. "The sauce is perfect, the seasoning divine," she declared. Her guests showed up. She lifted her utensil like royalty. "This mixture is flawless. The flavors are heavenly," she announced. They hadn't even tasted it yet, but Claire took it as read. Her dish was a masterpiece. They hadn't even tried it yet. Still, Claire was sure her food was amazing. 3 bites in, reality struck. Salt instead of sugar. Faces twitched, but Claire stayed proud. After only a few mouthfuls, truth showed up. She used salt instead of sugar. People cringed. Claire stayed confident. You could say she took it as read that she was right. You might say she was convinced she had the correct idea. Ever assume something was true without proof? When did you take something as read and regret it? Have you ever believed something without real evidence? When did you assume it was certain and wish you hadn't? A party. Music, laughter, good vibes. Then Kevin decides it's time for deep, dark thoughts. A get-together. Tunes, smiling faces, a relaxed atmosphere. Suddenly, Kevin starts sharing serious, gloomy ideas. Ever wondered if we're just tiny specks in an uncaring universe? He says, smiling. Have you thought that maybe we're small dots in a world that doesn't really care? He asks, grinning. Silence. Smiles fade, someone coughs. The air feels heavy, Kevin doesn't notice. No one speaks. Grins disappear. A person clears his throat. The mood grows tense. Kevin remains clueless. Lisa leans in and whispers, "Kevin, read the room." Lisa moves closer and murmurs, "Kevin, pay attention to everyone's mood." He blinks. So, no one wants to talk about that? He looks confused. So, nobody wants to discuss it? The DJ cranks up the volume. Conversation moves on. Kevin sits there, confused. The DJ turns the music louder. People chat about other things. Kevin stays puzzled. Reading the room is a skill. You could say, I don't think he can read the room. Noticing the group's energy is important. You might say, he can't pick up on what others feel. Ever been in a moment where someone just didn't get the vibe? What did you do? Have you ever had a situation where a person missed the overall feeling? How did you handle it? Dave never read books. Not because he couldn't, he just didn't want to. Dave never opened any books. It wasn't about lacking ability, he simply didn't feel like it. But somehow, he knew everything. History, science, philosophy. People thought he was secretly a genius. But he knew a lot. History, science, big ideas. People thought he was very smart. His secret? Eavesdropping. Cafes, trains, waiting rooms. He listened while pretending to scroll his phone. His trick? Listening in. Coffee shops, trains, lobby chairs. He paid attention while acting busy on his phone. To him, the world was an audiobook. He let others do the reading for him. In his eyes, everyone else was sharing knowledge. He just soaked in the details. You might say, he's not much of a reader, but he's sharp. You could comment, he doesn't go through pages, yet he's really clever. Or, I'm not much of a reader, but I listen. Or, I'm not into books, but I pay attention. Do you know someone like that? Someone who absorbs knowledge without touching a book? Have you met a person like this? One who picks up info without ever opening a page? Reading isn't just about books. It's about understanding, assumptions, people, situations. Taking in information goes beyond printed words. It's about grasping ideas, personalities, and contexts. Claire took it as read that she was a great cook. She wasn't. Claire believed she was an amazing chef. That wasn't really true. Kevin failed to read the room. The mood shifted, and he didn't see it. Kevin couldn't sense the change in the atmosphere. He missed the whole shift. Dave wasn't much of a reader, but he read people. He found his own way to learn. Dave wasn't into books, yet he understood others. He discovered a personal method to learn. Reading comes in many forms. Where do you see it in your life? There are plenty of ways to gather understanding. Where do you notice it in your day? How do you figure out the world around you? Ever seen something that looked too good to be true? Have you ever found something that seemed unbelievably perfect, but it really wasn't? Mark thought he won a free vacation. He was wrong. Mark believed he got a no-cost trip, but he soon learned it was a trick. He didn't read the fine print. Meals, not free, drinks, triple the price. Exclusive entertainment, a crazy membership fee. He never checked the tiny details. Food, extra money, drinks, 3 times more. Special shows, you had to pay a big membership bill. By day 2, he was surviving on free lemon slices from the bar. Some gift, he thought, stomach growling. On the second day, he only ate the lemons from the bar without paying. He thought, what kind of present is this? While his stomach rumbled. Fine print is sneaky. Tiny letters hiding big problems. Small text can fool you. Those little words can hide huge trouble. He should have checked before signing. Always read the fine print. He really needed to look over the details before he agreed. Always pay attention to that small text. You might say, wait, what? I didn't see that. Someone might exclaim, hold on, are you serious? I never noticed it. Someone could reply, it was in the fine print. Another person could answer, those tiny words had it all. Family dinner. Quiet, until Uncle Joe starts his usual speech. Dinner with relatives stays calm until Uncle Joe kicks off his typical talk. Same stories, same jokes, like a recording. He repeats the same tales and jokes. It's like he's stuck on replay. His niece leans over and whispers, he's reading off a script again. And he really is. His niece leans in and murmurs, he's just using the same lines. And it's true. Last year, he said, when I was your age, I walked 10 miles to school. This year, 12 miles. A year ago, he told them, when I was your age, I walked 10 miles to school. Now he claims it was 12. It's not just about paper scripts. Some people repeat their words so much it's like they're reading lines. It's more than paper notes. Some folks repeat themselves so often, it feels like they've memorized every phrase. Ever met someone like that? A boss giving the same speech? A friend telling the same excuse? Have you encountered a person like this? A manager who repeats the same lecture? A buddy who always uses the same reason? You might say, you don't mean that, you're just reading off a script. You could say, that's not real, you're just repeating old words. Ever read a book that changed you? Rob didn't expect much, just a cheap thriller at an airport. Have you ever picked up a book that completely shifted your perspective? Rob only thought it was a low-cost suspense story at the airport. By page 50, something clicked. By page 80, his whole life felt wrong. He needed a change. After the first 50 pages, an idea lit up in his mind. By 80 pages, he felt his entire life was out of place. He knew he needed something different. By the time he landed, he had quit his job, booked a flight, and planned a new life as a scuba instructor. When the plane touched down, he had already left his old work, bought another ticket, and decided to become a scuba teacher. It wasn't just a good read. It was an escape plan, hidden in paperback. It wasn't just a fun story. It felt like a secret plan, hidden between the covers. Some books do that, they're more than entertainment. Some stories do this, and they're bigger than simple fun. They shake you up. Ever had a book like that? They stir your thoughts. Have you ever found a book that did that to you? You might say, this book, it's a good read. You could say, this book, it's great to go through. Or, that was more than a good read, it changed me. Or, that was more than a nice story, it really shifted my life. Fine print hides tricks. A script hides real thoughts. Small details cover sneaky traps. Rehearsed lines hide genuine feelings. A good read, it hides a new world. A great story, it holds a whole different universe. Reading isn't just words, it's understanding. Looking through text isn't just letters. It's about truly grasping the meaning. Catching the hidden details, seeing what's behind the obvious. Spotting the secret parts, discovering what lies beyond what we see. Next time, pay attention. A contract, a chat, a book. Any of them could change everything. Next time, check closely. Whether it's a deal, a talk, or a novel, it could turn everything around. Sometimes words on a page seem easy until you have to read them out loud. Sometimes we think printed words will be simple, but saying them to others can feel surprisingly hard. Danny, full of confidence, raised his hand in class. Shakespeare? No problem. He started reading. Danny felt brave and lifted his hand to speak in class. Shakespeare? He wasn't worried. Then he began to share the text out loud. Methinks verily? His voice cracked. The class went silent. His face turned red. He tried to say old-fashioned words like methinks, verily? But his voice shook. Everyone stopped talking and he blushed with embarrassment. The words felt like smoke slipping from his mind. The teacher smiled, patting his shoulder. He felt the phrases vanish from his thoughts, almost like air. The teacher gave a gentle grin and touched his arm in comfort. Maybe just summarize, she said. Danny nodded, embarrassed. How about you just give the main idea, she suggested. Danny agreed, feeling shy. Some words are easier to read than to say. Some phrases look simpler on paper than they are to speak out loud. Have you ever read something out loud and struggled? Have you ever spoken text in front of people and found it tricky? You might say, wow, I totally misread this. You could think, oh, I said it wrong. Ever thought someone was waving at you but they weren't? Awkward, right? Have you ever believed a wave was for you when it wasn't? It feels super uncomfortable, right? Anna was at a cafe when a guy waved in her direction. She waved back. Anna sat in a coffee shop, noticed a man lifting his hand her way and waved in return. His face changed, confused, surprised. Oh no, he was waving at someone behind her. His expression shifted. He looked puzzled and shocked. It turned out the greeting was for a person sitting behind her. Most people would pretend to stretch. Not Anna. She stood up, walked over, and smiled. Many folks would act like they were just moving their arms, but Anna did the opposite. She got up, moved closer, and grinned. I'm just here to return your wave. The guy laughed. Best misread situation ever. She said, I'm here to respond to your hello. He burst out laughing. It was the funniest mistaken wave ever. Has this ever happened to you? You could say, I totally misread that wave. Has that moment happened in your life? Maybe you would say, I messed up that wave. Sometimes we overthink things. We see meaning where there isn't any. Sometimes we imagine hidden ideas in simple situations. We discover purposes that don't really exist. Jake sat in the English class staring at a poem. The moon is red, he read. Jake was in his English lesson, looking at a poem. The line said, the moon is red. He spoke them quietly. He frowned. A symbol of war? Lost love? A god's anger? He looked at the teacher. He made a worried face. Does this mean fighting? Heartbreak? Some deity's rage? Then he glanced at the teacher. She shrugged. Or maybe the poet just saw a red moon. Jake wasn't convinced. She raised her shoulders. Or maybe the writer only observed a red-colored moon. Jake was not sure. That night, he stayed up, looking for hidden meaning. The next day, the teacher sighed. That evening, he stayed awake, hunting for secret clues. The following morning, his teacher took a deep breath. Jake, you've overread this. Sometimes a red moon is just a red moon. Jake, you've put too much thought into this. At times, a red moon is simply what it is. Have you ever done this? You might say, I think I'm overreading this too much. Has this happened to you? Maybe you'd say, I'm giving this way too much meaning. Reading isn't just about books. It's about understanding words, situations, even people. Going through text isn't only about novels. It involves grasping language, events, and even folks around us. Sometimes we struggle with words like Danny. Sometimes we misread like Anna. At times, we have trouble with speaking lines, just like Danny. Other times, we make a mistake in seeing signals, like Anna. And sometimes, like Jake, we see things that aren't there at all. And there are moments like Jake's when we imagine details that don't exist. What about you? Have you ever read out loud, misread, or overread something? What about yourself? Have you ever spoken text to others, misunderstood, or added too much meaning to it? Ever thought a tiny mistake could ruin something big? Have you ever wondered if one small slip can throw a huge plan off track? Sarah learned that the hard way with her wedding invitations. Sarah discovered this painful truth when her marriage party notices went wrong. She wrote, "Join us to celebrate love, laughter, and forever," but she forgot to proofread. She originally penned a sweet invite saying, "Come and enjoy joy, fun, and eternity," but didn't bother to check her text closely for mistakes. The printed version? "Join us to celebrate love, laughter, and forever." Now it sounded like a command. What ended up on paper? "Come and celebrate, adore fun, and forever." Suddenly it felt more like an order than a friendly request. Guests arrived expecting some weird poetry event. "So, are we clapping between words?" someone asked. People showed up thinking it was some strange verse recital. One person wondered, do we applaud after each phrase? Sarah sighed. "This is why you proofread." A missing comma changed everything. Sarah let out a breath and said, "This is the reason you double-check wording." That tiny punctuation mark caused all the confusion. Josh had a test. No time to study. His genius plan? Speed read the whole textbook. Josh faced an exam. 0 hours to prepare. His brilliant strategy? Whiz through the entire book at lightning speed. Pages flipped fast. Words blurred. He caught random facts. It'll be fine, he thought. He zoomed through page after page with phrases blending together. He only grabbed scattered details and convinced himself, I'll manage. On the test, what is photosynthesis? Josh smiled. Easy, he wrote confidently. The exam asked about how plants use light to grow. Josh felt confident and jotted down his answer with a grin. It's how plants turn light into food using solar panels. His teacher stared. Seriously? He explained that greenery collects sunshine like fancy power boards. The educator looked at him in disbelief and said, "You can't be serious." She sighed. "This is why you don't speed read. Some things need full attention." She exhaled and said, "That's exactly why you shouldn't hurry through your work. Certain topics demand complete focus." Emma loved an adventure book as a kid. Brave heroes, lost treasure, epic battles. When Emma was young, she adored a story full of daring warriors. hidden gold, and dramatic fights. Years later, she reread it, and suddenly it wasn't just about adventure anymore. Many years afterwards, she went through it once more and found it held deeper themes beyond excitement. It was about growing up, choices, and letting go of childhood dreams. Had it changed? She realized it focused on maturing, important decisions, and moving past youthful fantasies. Was the tale itself different now? No, she had. She wondered, what else in life needs a second read? No, the story was the same. Emma was the one who changed. She thought, which other parts of life should I examine again? Sometimes things mean more the second time. What would you reread? Often, a second look can reveal greater meaning. Which things might you go through again? Ever messed up because you didn't proofread? Have you ever made a silly error because you never bothered to check your words? It can happen in an instant. Maybe sent a text that changed the whole meaning? Or shot off a message that completely flipped the sense of what you meant? Or tried to speed read and got facts all wrong? I thought you said bring a cat, not a hat. Or skimmed things too fast and misunderstood? Wait, I was sure you wanted me to grab a cat, not a hat. And what about rereading? Ever looked at something old with new eyes? And how about giving old stuff another look? Maybe you've checked something familiar from a fresh angle? You might say, I should proofread better next time. You could end up thinking, I really need to inspect my text more carefully next time. Or, I need to reread this. I missed a lot. Or maybe, I should review this again. I overlooked important details. Words matter. How you read them. Even more. Our language is powerful, and the way we process it can change everything.